brainstorm.
Today's episode is brought to you by Wells Fargo. Whether your needs are personal, business, commercial, or institutional, check out Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, first in banking, last in customer care.
All right, Dr. Troyer, episode 7. It's been a while.
Dr. Geller, it's been a minute.
Yeah, but mid-season break, give people a chance to catch their breath, listen to previous episodes, and so on.
Yeah, study up. You never know when you're going to be quizzed on prior material, so then they can just go back over the past episodes, just make sure they've really, absorbed all the info.
Yeah, I find when you listen to them 2 to 3 times, you really absorb the full minutia of the episode. And there's a lot of minutia.
Yeah.
So episode 7, that puts us over the halfway mark of this season of Killer Inventions on the Killer Means Awesome podcast.
Yeah.
KMA podcast, if you prefer.
Sure, I do. And it's hard to believe we're at number 7.
Unbelievable.
It constantly feels like we rip right through them, and all of a sudden it's time for that conversation about, okay, what's next season going to be? We've done shipwrecks, we've done inventions, we've done biographies,
Any emails? Has anyone written in any suggestions or any housekeeping items this week?
There were a few emails that were complimentary.
About us or just other things?
Annoyingly, they singled you out.
Hello.
But we don't need to read those.
Timbre of my voice? Something special? I don't know. Okay. Well, but no notes from corporate. Nothing that we're in trouble for.
It's a good thing you mentioned that, because getting in trouble. Did I just read those scripts? What was the deal with the Wells Fargo thing? Was that a Lizzie special?
Interesting. Yeah, that, they've been in the news quite a bit, obviously a lot of negative press. So I think they're trying to reach a different audience. Not sure it's going to work. But I didn't have anything to do with that. But Lizzie secured our first banking sponsorship with Wells Fargo. It's an interesting one. We'll see how that plays out.
It's just good. Lizzie, if you're listening, run it past legal, because the ad made me a little nervous. But
it's fraught. Yeah, it's fraught because they're, potentially in some trouble.
We already got burned on the bow toe one.
Yeah, that turned out to be a bit of a disaster. I feel bad for that one.
Did you see the letter from their counsel that we got?
Yeah, it was difficult to read. I don't read Chinese. What did you make of that? It's all characters to me. I don't mean the people who wrote the letter. What did it say? I know it said something about never coming there, or you're not welcome. What was that?
I felt that I just read the thing word for word, but maybe they had a problem with my intonation or just delivery, or
Yeah.
They didn't feel like it helped them put their best foot forward as the jewel of Inner Mongolia.
Well, apparently Wells did not learn from the Baotou lesson, because I don't know. I've previewed some of the spots, and I'm not entirely sure they're flattering.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's Wells Fargo not learning or if it's KMA not learning.
Good point.
You know what? We'll huddle with Lizzie afterwards, but let's get into it. We got episode 7. Well, one of the things I like is if you tell me where people are listening to us from around the world.
Fantastic. So I pulled out a few places where we have at least 2 listeners. So let's jump in. We're starting with saying hello to our good friends in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So not Phoenix, Arizona. This is Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
Weird. Okay, never heard of it. All right.
Neither had I. I looked it up. It's a borough in Chester County, which they claim to be 28 miles northwest of Philly.
Yeah,
interesting fun fact, though. 1790 was when the French Creek Nail Works, later named the Phoenix Iron Works, opened as the very first nail factory in the United States. Pretty cool. Huh. It's been the economic center of that town for 2 centuries. So, interesting.
Yeah. Phoenixville. Hello, Phoenixville. Thanks for joining us.
Glad you're here. Let's next say hello to our good friends in High Wycombe, Buckinghamshire. Can you believe it? We're back in
Whoa.
England.
Yeah. And in High Wycombe. Like it's not just with the folks over there in Low Wycombe.
No, but interesting you say that because they do refer to themselves as just Wickham, but it is a sort of a rolling countryside. I looked this up too. Actually, former residence of Benjamin Disraeli, former prime minister, 19th century.
Boy, you did your research.
Yeah, well, I was very interested in these particular towns. They have interesting names to me. Phoenixville, High Wycombe.
High Wycombe.
Yeah, pretty cool. So then lastly, let's say hello, going back to our good friends in Canada, let's say hello to Kincardine, Ontario. Kincardine.
Kincardine. I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds like it should be in Scotland or something.
Kind of, but it's on the shores of Lake Huron. You know, it's known for its sandy beaches, Station Beach.
Yeah, I bet it's great for the cold dip. I love a cold dip.
Ooh, yeah, you've done that for years. I can't bring myself to do that.
Yeah.
But in any case, so it's Pennsylvania, it's Buckinghamshire, and it's Ontario. Great little grouping of places.
That's a great assortment. Always nice to have that. And we do seem to do well in England and in Canada.
Yeah.
So welcome to those listeners, and we are still trying to unload a little bit of swag from prior seasons.
Oh, nice.
If you want to go ahead and give us an email and give us your home address, we have some golf balls. We got a couple T-shirts. Just send in
the
your home
soft
address.
T-shirts or those rough ones? Which ones do we have left?
The hair shirt. We're out of the hair shirt.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. This is soft, kind of jersey soft.
Love it.
And size medium. We're trying to unload some mediums.
And email address? Do we know that off the top of our head?
I don't.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it's we'll get back to you on that.
I think it's killer means awesome at gmail.com. But let's also record this. It could be, is it KMA podcast at gmail?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, I think it is killer means awesome at gmail.com.
So
let's go with that.
Shoot us an email.
Yeah, send us an email. And so, Doctor, from memory, I believe today is your episode. You are going to be telling us about an invention. And again, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe you mentioned chemistry last time we spoke.
Chemistry. So I just want to make sure. You brought the lab coat.
Yes, got the goggles. All good to go. Bunsen burner not working today, but that's okay. I'm here to listen, not to perform experiments.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to the world of chemistry.
Love it.
And
that's where we all started, right? You started with chemistry with the LSD episode.
Yeah, it's weird. We didn't talk this out ahead of time, but it feels like chemistry is taking more than its share of the episodes this
it's an important subject matter, so I think we're giving it its due.
And one of us was good at it in school.
A long time ago. So where are we going with chemistry? What is this all about today?
There's also a nice tie-in with Wells Fargo. I understand that's a San Francisco bank. There's going to be some San Francisco news in this little story. Also, a bit of a nesting doll tale today.
We're going to Russia?
We're talking about a guy who invented two things, really, if we think about it.
Okay.
And this is a man from Sweden.
Nice. So was that where that guy was? Albert Hoffman? Was that the LSD guy from Sweden?
No, he was from Switzerland.
Fair enough, but starts with an S in Europe.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
And I'm going to say the name. I'm a little bit scared. He strikes me as the kind of guy that you may know a lot about, and then it's going to be a big bummer.
All right, try me.
Alfred Bernard Nobel.
Well, I mean, we've all heard of the Nobel Prize, right?
Sure.
And of course, he is Swedish. He's early 1800s guy. He's a very famous chemist.
Oh, no.
I do not know a ton about him. I just know the prize. What?
No.
What?
You're making me nervous.
No, I don't know that much about him.
Reeling off a bunch of facts there.
I've just eliminated all the facts from my brain. That's what I know about Alfred Nobel. So
okay. Do you know his parents' names?
I do not.
Okay.
I could guess. I bet they sound Swedish. Is that correct? Am I right?
Not even.
Really?
Not even.
Do we have a Ludwig in there? Is there something like that?
The parents are Emmanuel and Carolina.
Okay, so yeah, not what I thought.
Okay.
Wow. All right, cool.
Now, their child, Alfred Bernard Nobel, was born in 1833.
Nice.
So you're correct. Early 19th century.
And he was born in Sweden.
He was born in Sweden, and it's a
Stockholm?
family. Yes, Stockholm.
Vasa.
It's
Okay, sorry. It's a callback, right, from Shipwrecks. The
Sure.
Vasa in the Stockholm, Sweden. Okay.
Sure. And I believe one of our most avid listeners visited that Vasa museum recently.
Yes. It's incredibly exciting to hear when people find their way to Stockholm and then ping us to tell us, hey, I went to the Vasa Museum. Someone actually gave me a refrigerator magnet from that museum.
What year was that? What year did the Vasa go down roughly?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
Okay, no, that was rhetorical. I'm not asking you. I'm asking our listeners because like I said, there's quizzes. I expect people to have gone back, listened. So if you're listening at home, that's when you just pop in and you say, when the Vasa went down.
Yeah, it was definitely early-ish 1600s, but I don't know the exact year.
Okay. 200 years later, little baby Alfred Bernard Nobel is born, and that's exciting for the family-ish because they are a poor family, at least initially, like when he's born. And indeed, only 3 of the 8 Nobel children survive into adulthood.
Wow.
Yeah.
What the heck was going on back then?
Impoverished,
Okay. All right,
hard times. But it's not because the dad is not smart. The dad is actually an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He's an inventor. He's a graduate of the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm.
Yeah.
But he's not making any scratch in Sweden. So he moves to Russia. He hears there's some chances there, and he wants to see if he can get a job over there. And that turns out to be a fantastic decision by Alfred's dad.
Wow. And so Alfred is with him at this point. Alfred's already born.
No,
he's
actually,
going to Russia.
Great question. No, first dad goes to Russia alone to take care of business, and then he'll send for the family if things are going well.
Perfect.
They are going well. The dad, once he gets out from under all the debts and all the pressure of family life in Sweden and poverty, he really starts to catch his stride. One of the things he invents in Russia is something called the veneer lathe. Okay, now that makes possible the production of modern plywood.
Wow, cool. Hey, this should have been a Terry's episode. You got wood, you got turpentine, but Terry's. Wow. So he's making a name for himself.
He is, but he's just getting started. The other thing that Dad does is he does some of the earliest work in helping to develop torpedoes, underwater torpedoes.
What? That early?
For naval warfare.
Incredible. Okay, I had no idea that they were making torpedoes back then.
And the dad really, the other thing, veneer lathe, that's got obvious industrial applications, but where the dad really starts to make money is in that field, the torpedoes, the armaments. He helps produce early sea mines during the Crimean War.
Wow. That's so cool. I had no idea. Oh, so his dad was this wasn't like something that he just came up with on his own. His dad was already sort of an inventor and playing around with chemistry.
Absolutely. And so the dad is doing well. So he sends for the family, brings them all over to Russia, and he can afford private tutors. So young Alfred is very well educated. There's a whole series of tutors teaching him different subjects. And over the course of his childhood and his studies and early adulthood, he acquires proficiency in 7 different languages.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Overachiever.
Yeah. Swedish, Russian, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and English.
Unbelievable. I mean, I guess, if you have the time.
And if you have that many private tutors, I mean, it just sounds like they're just shuttling in and out all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What else are you going to do in Russia?
If I had 10 different private tutors, I'd probably have a couple languages by now.
If only I had studied harder. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Like his dad, he's interested in science, especially chemistry. And Alfred, as he nears adulthood, begins to study with some well-known chemists, including a Russian guy named Nikolai Zenina.
Okay, do not know him. That's interesting.
Okay.
He's well-known in Russia?
You've never heard of him, Nikolai Zenina?
I've heard of Nikolai, not that Nikolai, but I've heard the name Nikolai.
Yeah, Zenina. It sounds like somebody plays for the Ottawa Senators or something.
What are we 15 minutes in yet? We got the first hockey reference. All right, let me just put that on the scoreboard. Go ahead.
Okay, so he's studying with fancy chemists, but the big break in Alfred's life occurs in 1850. Okay, so he's 17 roughly. Is that correct? Yeah, he's 17. He meets an Italian chemist named Ascanio Sobrero.
Sobrero, and Italian being one of the languages he speaks, right?
Yeah, he speaks
Perfect.
it. I don't.
Right.
Now, this guy, Ascanio Sobrero, is an interesting character. Just 3 years before he bumps into young Alfred Nobel, he had discovered an organic nitrate compound, which you may have heard of, which is now known simply as nitroglycerin.
Ah, yes, of course. Wow. He invented that?
Ascanio did, yeah.
Wow. Okay, good for him. I mean, that's pretty cool. Nitroglycerin, I mean, that's like a medicine. That's nitrates, right? Like
Sure.
Relaxes the blood vessels. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Very good. Oh man, you know this stuff inside and out.
Well, no, but nitroglycerin, don't they give that when you're having a heart attack? It's like because it relaxes your blood vessel, it increases the supply of blood to the heart.
Okay, we're going to get there, Dr. Geller.
Okay.
Nitroglycerin, for those scoring at home, is a dense, colorless, oily, highly combustible liquid.
Right. My grandfather used to have these little pellets of nitroglycerin in case he, felt like a heart attack. That's how I know that.
Or felt like blowing something up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and didn't Nobel, he's like a explosive guy.
Oh, big dude.
Well, no, I don't know. I'm just saying that's like the most obvious thing.
Okay.
But go on. Nitroglycerin and the Italian.
So, at least initially, our friend, the Italian who discovers nitroglycerin, he wants nothing to do with it. He basically keeps the discovery to himself for a year because he's got a bad feeling about what people might use it for.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. Prescient.
So, but eventually, Ascanio does start to discuss his discovery with other people, and he says, "Listen, it's interesting. It's a fascinating compound, but it's extremely dangerous, and it's basically impossible to handle or work with."
Ooh.
Okay, but guess who's not scared of nitroglycerin?
Al,
our hero.
I had a feeling.
He can't wait to tell his dad and his younger brother, Emil Oscar Nobel, about this miraculous new liquid. Family begins to experiment with it at their armaments factory, which they've set up in Hellenborg, Sweden.
Oh, so they're back in Sweden? They're not in Russia anymore.
They're doing well enough. They actually have factories they start to have factories in different countries. Okay. But in Hellenborg, Sweden is where they start working with this new stuff that Sobrero came up with. And young Alfred is really excited about it. But Sobrero was not kidding about how volatile the new substance was. In 1864, at that factory I mentioned in Hellenborg, an accidental explosion killed not only Alfred's brother Emil,
oh no,
but several factory workers.
Oh wow, geez, yikes! How old was his brother?
Good question. We didn't get into that level of research, but
that's sad. That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the brother is an adult, so it's not like a kid running around the factory.
Still, it's your brother.
Now, many of us would have been scared away from the whole thing and, decided to work in a different area of chemistry.
Myself
Alfred,
included.
However, became utterly obsessed with finding a way to make nitroglycerin safer, more stable, and usable either as...
Killed his brother.
Yeah. On the other hand, we don't know if he liked his brother, but let's assume he did.
Yeah.
So he's like a, dog with a bone trying to figure out, like, there's got to be a way to make this thing a little bit safer to work with, because then, I mean, we thought we were making money before with the sea mines and the torpedoes. He said, if we figure this thing out, then its application both as a weapon of war, but then also as a tool for industry, like especially mining.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said this, like, we could earn millions and millions of dollars.
And interesting timing, because the Civil War had just ended, so that we couldn't use the explosives. Had he come up with this a little earlier, shipped it over, maybe, could have been in the Civil War.
Good point.
Just missed it.
But it's perfect timing, though, for the advent of railroads. But we'll get there.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow.
In the meantime, while he is working away in his lab at the factory, people continue to die, unfortunately,
Oh my God.
because he and his family are already selling an early version of nitroglycerin, which they call Nobel's blasting oil.
Oof. Well, I mean, at least the name has a air of caution to it, right? Like,
Yeah,
blast,
I mean, arguably, you know what you're getting when you
right? It's not mislabeled. Yeah.
buy that. In 1866, April 1866, just 2 years after the death of his brother, there's another big boom. Literally, this is in San Francisco. And guess where it happens?
Some kind of munitions factory?
Nope, it happens at the Wells Fargo building in San Francisco.
You gotta be kidding me. Are you serious?
No. Yes, I am.
Oh my God. In 1866?
1866, two clerks at the bank get sent to a room full of unclaimed freight and cargo. One of the unclaimed crates seems to be leaking, and so these clerks with the last names Haven and Webster are sent to open up the crate, see what's inside, see whether it can be resealed or just needs to be thrown out. Yes, turns out the crate housed a shipment of Nobel's blasting oil. That's what had been leaking. When they take their first crack at trying to pry open the box, it explodes. Shatters windows up to a half-mile away. Kills not only the two clerks, but 13 other people in nearby offices.
Gosh, wow. Yeah, because occasionally, I get an oil leak, like at the car, and I'm not so frightened. This sounds like an oil leak that really went wrong, like the blasting oil. That's terrible.
Now, you might assume, okay, well, that's it for Nobel, right? Like he gets locked up, the family business goes into bankruptcy.
Killed your brother, blew up the bank.
Never sees the inside of a laboratory for the rest of his life. No, not so.
Oh,
for one thing, it was a different time, like consumer protection wise.
Yeah, apparently.
And government regulation wise.
And package sealing, right? Like, that blasting oil should have been maybe double bagged or something. I don't know.
See, as unstable and powerful and dangerous as Nobel's blasting oil was, it was still such a radical improvement for industrial activities over the prior explosives used for mining and for stuff like that. Okay. So prior to this so-called blasting oil, miners and road builders were using something called black powder, which is like gunpowder. It's like a mixture of sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate.
Got it. Like those little M70s, like the little firecrackers. They had that powder in them. I don't know if it's black powder, but there's powder.
The best.
Yeah, those are cool.
And even though you and I here at the podcast, we don't like to, and we never would engage in stereotyping or labeling or othering, any of that.
No, I think we even signed something. Lizzie made us, really adhere to that rule.
Yeah, we sign it before every episode, so she's protected.
Sign it again, guys.
Yeah. Okay, so even though we don't ever do those things and never would, I will say that this old type of explosive, black powder, is known as a low explosive.
Okay.
Like we have somebody listening from High Wycombe, like that just sounds important. Yes. Well, anyway, this is a low explosive. Okay. And that the black powder, it is said to burn rather than explode. And so to create the explosive effect, what you have to do is contain the black powder in a tight space. So you see it with a gun, for instance, the containment creates enough explosive energy to propel the bullet, but not so much as to explode the barrel.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
At least when it works correctly. Okay. In contrast to the so-called low explosives, this newfangled thing that Nobel's messing around with, the nitroglycerin, the oil, is a new class called high explosives.
Okay.
Now, nitroglycerin, unlike black powder, doesn't burn, it detonates.
Ooh.
There's a chemical chain reaction which results in a white-hot, concussive supersonic wave.
Ooh.
Much more powerful and destructive than anything low explosives can accomplish. So Nobel keeps tinkering around with it, looking for some additive, something that he can put in there to make it more stable and shippable and less likely to kill clerks at Wells Fargo.
But this is still derived from this nitroglycerin? Like he's still working with that compound? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So he tries adding different things. He adds in brick dust. He adds in coal dust, wood waste. He's looking for the magic additive. In 1867, so this is a year.
He works fast. It's only a year later. Yeah.
Well, he is obsessed. He's just as I said, and totally fixated. 1867, he does have his eureka moment.
Hello.
He combines nitroglycerin with something called diatomaceous earth.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Diatomaceous earth is kind of like a crumbly, soft type of earth. And what it is it's the fossilized remains of microalgae.
Wow. Where did he come up with that? That seems kind of random.
Yeah.
It seems like he was throwing everything against the wall and then he just picked up some dirt outside.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with this.
This was the magic addition.
How many more people died before this thing commercialized?
He patented his new compound, the nitroglycerin plus diatomaceous earth, and he came up with a name for it.
What did he call
used
it?
The ancient Greek word for power, and he called the new stuff dynamite.
I've heard of dynamite. That's incredible. Wow. So did he coin that term?
Yes.
Wow. Awesome.
Yes.
That's what he's most famous for, is dynamite. That's right. Alfred Nobel Dynamite.
Yeah.
It's starting to ring a bell.
The dynamite came in sticks with a blasting cap and a fuse and instantly began to transform industry.
And inspired a lot of cartoonists, right? Because it's always that TNT, like the dynamite sticks. So I'm sure a lot of artists were super excited.
Exactly what I thought of. How did it go down? It was the Roadrunner and the Coyote.
Yeah, with the sticks of dynamite. Were they like red? Like those red sticks of dynamite. Like really scary, but cool. Yeah. Well, the M70s, those little firecrackers, look like mini sticks of dynamite.
So exciting to work with.
Wow, I can't believe he created dynamite. Like that's, jeez. And a catchphrase, right? It became a catchphrase for that
Man,
TV show.
You're hitting all my points. Okay. The discovery coincided with the era of railroads, and it helped construction crews blast through rock and even straight through mountains. It was also much safer to store and ship than the old blasting oil, although that's not saying all that much.
Right. Tell that to the guys at Wells.
Dynamite, though it was safer, still had some problems. Like if you left it in the box for too long in just one place and you didn't rotate the box or anything like that, then the nitroglycerin would begin to like sweat or weep a little bit. And so accidents happen from time to time, but still, big advance over nitroglycerin.
Right. Somewhat more stable.
Dynamite also very quickly is being used for war purposes. It's used in the Franco-Prussian War in 1870. It's also used by Irish nationalists in the 1880s in attacks against the English.
Well, so he's producing this and selling it all over the world?
Absolutely. All over the world.
Wow.
Ramping it
No
up.
competition? Like it's just Alfred's dynamite?
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's got the patent.
Yeah, and maybe, he feels like, look, people in my family died for this. Like this is our thing, and we've suffered from it. And
blood money.
Well, mainly Emil suffered from it, but now I'm going to reap the benefit.
Mainly Emil.
Now, in the U.S., the Army develops guns that shoot dynamite, like little mini charges of dynamite.
Oh, that sounds cool. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
What's his name fires some of them? Teddy Roosevelt. All of these wartime uses did start to make people upset about the massive fortune that Alfred Nobel was starting to amass from the sale of dynamite.
Right.
In 1888, when he's getting really rich, supposedly, and yet another brother of his is dying, although this one wasn't from an explosion, but his brother Ludwig dies. And
Ludwig. Yeah, of
Ludwig.
course.
You called it.
I was going to say, there's got to be a Ludwig. If you're in Sweden, I mean, you can't throw whatever their coinage is and not hit someone named Ludwig.
I think it's a kroner.
Is it a kroner? Yeah, that sounded familiar. I was going to say Kruger, but then I think I know a guy named Kruger, so I think that might be something different.
Or at least shop at Kruger's. Okay, 1888, Ludwig dies. That sucks. But apparently, the story goes that there was a French newspaper which mistakenly thought that it was Alfred who had died.
Oh.
And the headline over their mistaken obituary was, "The Merchant of Death is dead." The lead sentence was, "Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich finding ways to kill more people faster than ever before, died yesterday."
Oh my God. That would not be what I would want someone to write about me.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's a backhanded compliment, is it? Not sure of the definition.
I mean, they did say he got rich, right?
Yeah, good point.
So there's something there.
Wow. So they didn't know that Alfred had not died.
Yeah, they thought it was Alfred. It was actually Ludwig, who was less of a newsworthy Nobel. But anyway, Nobel, already, shocked and devastated about his brother's death, was, as you say, really bummed to see this summation of his life.
Yeah, that's not a great way to be remembered.
He actually considered himself a pacifist.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Stand on the inherent irony.
Well, you're going to hear his theory, but he was first of all, he was very proud of how dynamite was transforming industry.
Yeah, the railroads, all that. That's great.
He was also enjoying the money that he was basically printing at that point. However, he did come up with an early theory of what we now recognize as mutually assured destruction.
Ooh.
He thought, you know what, this weapon is getting so powerful, we're going to get to the point where everybody's got it, and they're going to realize that, in effect, war is pointless because it leads to the destruction of all sides.
Because everyone's going to have these stockpiles of dynamite.
Exactly. Should we go into our commercial or go?
Yeah, why don't we
longer?
take a quick break? No, we can take a quick break. Let's hear from our new sponsor. And incredibly apropos, given the explosion that you described in San Francisco, that we're going to hear from Wells Fargo. But let's hear what they have to say.
With the troubling rise in identity theft, cyber attacks, and fraud, now more than ever, you need a bank which has your back. And then there's Wells Fargo. At Wells Fargo, we understand that banking is more than just dollars and cents. It's relationships, time with family, and creating memories, like the 6.5 hours you spent on hold waiting to talk to the Wells Fargo fraud investigator. Wells Fargo, where $20,000 of your money can vanish overnight. And fraud protection is an afterthought.
Yeah, so not incredibly flattering on the Wells Fargo front, from at least from what I can hear.
Said, I just read it. I mean, honestly, it was as if I was listening to it for the first. I swear I black out reading half these things. Does sound like they've still got some things to iron out there.
Yeah.
But where we left off was poor Alfred was, his brother dies, and then he also sort of
the bad obituary.
The bad obituary. So, due to his sudden and intense concern about his legacy, and his misgivings about, the military uses of dynamite,
right,
he decides to leave more than 90% of his wealth to the formation of the annual prizes, which to this day carry his name and carry great prestige.
Interesting. So kind of trying to whitewash some of the death and destruction.
It
a little bit like the Sacklers putting up those museums and stuff.
Dude, it reminds me of the greenwashing or sports washing, whatever they call it, with the Saudis. They're like, oh yeah, we golf. I mean, sure, like we hang people and we, being gay is illegal here, and we do, all that. But like Ronaldo's playing.
Right, exactly. But it's like, isn't like the opioids, like the Sackler family, they made money with everybody dying from opioid addiction, and then they say, wait, but look at this art museum we just opened.
Exactly. And now all those places are having to change the name.
Big time. Yeah, but Nobel stuck around. Like they're not, that doesn't have a stain.
Yeah.
The prize, at least. Like no one thinks of the prize as something that, sort of implies death and destruction.
Right. But you're right, 100%. It's greenwashing, whitewashing, whatever you want to call it. He wanted to be known for the prizes, obviously not for the dynamite. And so in a sense, he didn't just invent dynamite, he invented the Nobel Prizes.
So he stuck, though, in terms of chemistry and inventions, dynamite was where he made his mark. He didn't then expand into other sort of chemical
They're
inventions.
Constantly working with it and coming up with new iterations. Basically dynamite is the dynamo that powers his vast fortune. In 1896, Alfred, our protagonist, dies at the age of 63.
Whoa, he was young.
Yeah.
What happened?
He suffers a stroke in Italy.
Oh, bummer. Well, at least he could speak the language to ask for help, right? Because he speaks so many languages. That's bright side.
He did, glass half full, spoke the language. How do you say medic how do you say 911 in Italian? He never did, Alfred never did marry or have children.
Oh.
Had a couple of longtime girlfriends, but the relationships were kind of on again, off again.
Right. But then at least he didn't have to have that uncomfortable discussion of like, kids, it's all going to the prize.
Yeah, but
no money for
then
you.
relatives come out of the woodwork to challenge the will for sure and the estate, and there's all sorts of litigation. Alfred's personality was described as somewhat solitary and depressive. He was most happy just tinkering away in the laboratory.
Yeah.
And, one of his attributes as a chemist was just, as I said, utter fixation and just trying over and over and over again. Like, there's got to be a way to make this nitroglycerin work if I can just find that correct compound.
Now, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
When he decided to give 90% of his fortune to the prize, was he alive when they awarded the prize, or was that a posthumous
that word? Yeah,
it was that word.
It's that word.
Okay, so they didn't.
He's not alive to see the first one's handed out.
Okay, that would have been cool. Like to be the first guy to get the prize from Alfred.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been cool if he was like the first dude who got it. He's like, right. I established these prizes, and okay. Even after he dies, the company just goes right on selling dynamite.
Of course.
Here's some key dates after he dies. 1898. Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders are firing rounds of the Nobel Company's new, more jelly-like dynamite during the siege of Santiago in Cuba during the Spanish-American War.
Cool.
So that's 1898. 3 years after that, 1901, that is when the first Nobel Prizes were handed out.
And who received these first prizes?
Well, I don't know the individuals, but what I will say is that, as you know, these prizes come out every year.
Yep.
And the fields are chemistry, physics, medicine, literature, and peace. Okay.
Right, because isn't there a debate on, is there a Nobel Prize for economics, or is that not really true? I guess not. As I felt like maybe economic science. But anyways, okay.
That's a great question.
I think there's always been a debate about that. Yeah.
We'll fix that in the edit if there's something we need to add. But okay. So in addition to bragging rights, you get what's equivalent today to roughly $1 million US.
Wow.
When you win one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. The Nobel Prizes are meant to single out and celebrate people who, quote, during the preceding year have conferred the greatest benefits to humankind.
High bar.
Yeah. Meanwhile, not just like sort of average benefits to mankind, or it's got to be the greatest.
No benefits. Chewing gum. Like, so Wrigley wasn't really in that family.
Finalist.
Yeah. Oh, was he really?
He was a finalist, but then, yeah. Meanwhile, after that first exciting Nobel Prize ceremony, stuff just keeps on exploding.
Oh my God. Yeah.
1904, if you were in Boston and you were anywhere near this event, you would remember it. A trolley car collided with a 50-pound box of dynamite, which had fallen off of a cart and onto the tracks.
Ugh.
That explosion killed 10 people.
Oh, yeah.
9 years later, in a place which has been in the news lately, Baltimore Harbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, 50 people were killed and many more injured when 340 tons of dynamite going from barge to steamship suddenly detonated.
Oof. Jeez. Yeah, that's terrible.
So there's, regularly these massive accidents involving dynamite. Now, on the bright side, in the early 20th century, massive public projects like the Hoover Dam were basically made possible by dynamite.
Wow.
And indeed, dynamite is still used today in mining.
Is it still come in that stick form, or is there some new packaging?
That they've improved it a little bit, but they do still sell the sticks as well.
Cool.
We got a quote here from a gentleman from the Colorado School of Mining.
Ah, okay.
This guy's name is Lee Fronafel.
Mm-hmm.
And his point is that mining has given us all of the raw materials which make the world around us. His quote is, "There's little about modern life which is not tied to the mining which dynamite made possible."
Interesting. Because they must use it for all like the cobalt or all those different sort of
All of it.
Precious. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It does cause a lot of environmental damage, though, right? Like, isn't that a problem also?
It definitely also explodes a lot of eardrums.
Yeah.
Now, as you correctly presaged or guessed or whatever referred to, dynamite has a pervasive presence increasingly in popular culture.
Right.
Whether it's World War II movies where you see the bridge that needs to be blown up.
Yeah, they push down on something like
Yeah.
kind of press it down and then you watch it explode. So cool.
Man, it's so cool. Those were like the things we imitated as little kids. Like, oh, we got to blow up the bridge.
Right now they use like cell phones or something weird. Like you just, but it used to be you had to run that line and then
it's not the same. You had to run the line and it's just like everybody was all cool. Their faces were all grimy. And,
yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we already mentioned the Wile E. Coyote
the
cartoons.
Yep.
And there's a famous scene in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where there's a train robbery and the famous line from Sundance to Butch is, "You think you used enough dynamite there, Butch?" That's after he's used way too much dynamite and the money is like floating away in the wind. And then again, as you pointed out, it became the famous catchphrase of
Good Times. Jimmy, what was it?
Very good, Jimmy.
Jimmy something?
Jimmy Walker.
Jimmy Walker, Dynamite. Yeah,
yes,
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that show. It's set in Chicago.
I did not know that.
Yeah, set in the projects of Chicago.
Good times.
Yeah, Jimmy Walker. That's right. And I think he still breaks that out on like some old on commercials where they kind of put him in a commercial for some geriatric product, and he still manages to utter that dynamite phrase.
Wait, so he's still with us?
He is still with us, as far as I know, unless these commercials are just, taped a long time ago.
Now, is Jimmy Walker the actor or the character?
Never knew. I know that maybe they're interchangeable. I'm not sure.
Now, a final note on nitroglycerin, and this gets back to Geller family news. As you pointed out, it's not only useful as an explosive or for industry, but also as medicine.
Yes.
Okay.
Those little pills.
It's commonly prescribed for angina pectoris.
Yes.
And as an antihypertensive agent. So it corrects the imbalances between the flow of oxygen and blood to the heart. Or rather, it corrects the imbalances between the oxygen and blood going to the heart and then the heart's energy demands. Somehow it just helps regulate that whole system.
But it's interesting, the dichotomy, because you have the explosiveness and the death, and then you have the nitroglycerin also being used to potentially save lives as a medicine.
Yeah. Well, and my big question was like, wait, how is it not blowing people up? But
I'll
explain that in a second.
Is that heartburn or am I about to explode? Why did I just take that pill?
Yeah, and it also feels like just such an easy way to kill a loved one that you don't really love that much. Like I gave him too much of the whatever.
Right. I just gave you those pills. I'm just going to push down on this lever. Wait, what are you doing?
Here's a little bonus. I know you only paid for 2 inventions, but here's a third one. That medical use of nitroglycerin, that was discovered in 1878. So not long after, Alfred Nobel came up with dynamite.
But Alfred wasn't involved in that. Someone else took that nitroglycerin.
No, there's an English doctor, William Morel.
Okay.
And he discovers the effect of nitroglycerin on angina symptoms first in himself and then in patients.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like something like a natural transition. Like, hey, that explosive agent, can we swallow it and maybe help our heart? Exactly. That just seems so odd.
Exactly.
What the heck was that guy thinking?
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking, but the key was that the medical use of nitroglycerin, the stuff you're using, is highly diluted. So it's just a tiny bit in a holder fluid. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That makes me feel a little more secure.
Now, ironically, guess who suffered from angina pain?
Don't tell me Alfred.
Alfred Nobel.
No way.
And he used nitroglycerin to manage his symptoms, but he didn't have
Really?
the patent on that. And so, he had to pay full freight like everybody else
Yeah, but he could afford that.
down at the pharmacy.
Did that guy win a Nobel Prize for inventing that nitroglycerin medicine?
William Morrell. No,
Oh,
he didn't
okay.
get a Nobel Prize.
Too bad.
I think you gotta to get that medical prize. It feels like it's got to be something
It's
pretty
huge.
big.
Yeah, huge.
It can't just be like managing,
Pain.
symptoms of. Yeah, it's got to be like no more smallpox or something.
Right. Not like minor joint relief, or something like that. Like, my arm doesn't hurt quite as much.
Like a salve.
Right, exactly.
A topical.
Yeah.
So that is the complicated tale of Alfred Nobel. It's the complicated tale of the development of dynamite.
Well, it's sad that a couple of his family members, or at least one, as a direct result of this invention, had to go. But I mean, what a crazy, like, world-changing invention, dynamite.
Dynamite.
Like, to say that you invented dynamite would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And also good naming.
Great naming.
You know what I mean?
Oh, you said that was of Greek?
Yeah, like the word for power in ancient Greek is, just that same root, dynamism, dynamo, dynamo.
Right. Also ironic that like the Nobel is maybe more known as a peace prize than a chemistry prize, considering that it, resulted in so much death and destruction.
Yeah, so that you're right on the money. I mean, it is greenwashing. It's like he doesn't want to be known as the merchant of death. He was bummed to read that obituary, and he's like, okay, I want to put all my money into like having a reputation for the opposite thing.
Right. And like, it's how funny, because that woman, what's her name? The little girl, Malala, she won that Nobel Prize. And, she's the opposite of what dynamite and the explosions and the environmental impact and all that. Like, she sort of represents the opposite of that.
It seems like she has stayed on the straight and narrow. I got to say, once in a while, those Peace Prize winners, like they then like participate in a genocide or something. Like the lady in Burma or Myanmar. She won a Peace Prize, and then she'd been in prison, and she's a great woman, whatever. She, wins the Peace Prize. She, starts to lead the country, but then it's under her watch that whole mass killing and deportation of the Rohingya happened.
Whoops. Yeah, that's bad.
And also Kissinger. Did Kissinger ever get a Peace Prize?
Well, he probably did.
Yeah, and that guy, was responsible for a lot of
bombing in
death
Cambodia.
Well.
Yeah, and Malala, though, I thought you were going to say, like, you win the prize, but she was only 17. So then she went through that, rebellious phase. And all of a sudden she's like, boozing it up, and like she has an eating disorder, and she's just going nuts because she was only 17.
Like brawling in bars because everybody like, it's like, oh, Miss Peaceful. And she just starts punching people out.
Right. Just breaking out the metal.
Did you see her at the Oscars this year?
I did not. I didn't know she was there. Is she now acting?
Or was it last year? I don't know. Maybe there was a documentary about her or something.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Maybe it was last year. She did not seem to find the host's joke about her funny. I just remember that she sort of seemed angry.
Well, she seems to have sort of a permanent serious countenance. Like, she doesn't seem like someone that's lighthearted. Like, hey, Malala, guess what? Like, she's not going to joke around with you, right? She's got bigger ideas on her mind.
Oh, I thought you meant like as a result of the, getting shot in the face.
She got shot in the face? Wait, Malala did? Oh, that's right. But that was prior to winning the award, right? Or was that post? Was that some like jealous co-star? Like, wait, Malala, you can't go off and have your own prize. I worked with you on that. I forgot she got shot in the face. Well, that's a bummer. Yeah. That stinks. Poor girl. Although she got the prize in the $1 million, I'd still go with not being shot in the face. I'd give up those awards. Plus, it's 17. Like, what do you do? How do you top that? Like, I won the prize at 17. What have you done after? Went to the Oscars?
Yeah, but it's still better than, helping to preside over a genocide.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. If you're going to rank. Yeah.
So that's episode 7.
That's fantastic. That's
it was
explosive.
Great to field your questions. We did run into a little bit of the problem I predicted, which is you already knew a lot about Nobel.
Did not know. No.
But you played along.
No, just some association. I had no idea. I didn't know about his brother for sure.
Poor Emil. And Ludwig.
Ludwig too. I mean, Ludwig. Don't forget about him just because he wasn't in that blast.
Yeah.
And I love the inherent irony of the Wells Fargo explosion, because that was unplanned. We didn't know. I didn't know that was going to be a part of this episode. And look at our sponsor.
Yeah. Can you imagine those two clerks, Haven and whatever the other one's name was, going back there and it's like that first crack of the crowbar. It's like,
Well, first you think you're going to have to get a bunch of rags. You got oil spilled over, and then it's like, no, that's the least of your problems.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic, Dr. Troy. Very interesting. And of course, I'm always a sucker for the chemistry stories. And so now I feel much more educated, at least in terms of explosions, explosives, and Alfred Nobel. Now I know what the heck his whole deal was.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, now, in a way, that has become the more, as you mentioned, the more important invention, or the one that we're all more aware of in a sort of daily way, is the prizes.
Right. Right. So I guess he did achieve his desired goal. Yeah. On many fronts.
And it's also interesting that term merchant of death, that's just been around forever, because like it still gets used today, and like when we were trading that basketball player, right? That was in Russia.
Oh, was he called the Merchant of Death?
Yeah, the guy that we had to give back, he was a merchant of death. But he wasn't coming up with any prizes, to cushion it. He's just the merchant of death.
Wow, yeah, crazy. I mean, but just incredible that that in a sense he knew, based on that false obituary, that he needed to sort of correct the record as best he could in terms of his legacy. So in a way, it was like, but how frightening to read that and be like, wait, oh, geez, I'm not going to be remembered as anything good.
Yeah, I mean, you can just imagine the psychology of it is like you're both fascinated by it, good at it, like interested in it. There's money to be made, but like you've also lost your brother in a horrible explosion at the factory. Like it's they should do a movie about the guy. Probably.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not a movie about that guy.
Yeah, who would you cast?
Well, let's see. He's kind of a loner, serious type.
Loner, depressive, got to look, passable as Swedish.
Right.
Although he's not like the blonde Swede. He's like more of the Black Dane look.
But does he have that facial hair, like the goatee or the Van Dyke type thing going on?
Yeah, he's got facial hair, and he does look like a serious fellow, not like lighthearted.
Is it like a Ben Kingsley or like what kind of?
No. I'm thinking like a Jude Law kind of vibe.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good.
Because all of the important action, is when he's in his. I mean, the thing is, he gets right after. He's 17 when he meets the Italian.
Yeah,
and the Italian's like, no, don't work with it. Don't tell anybody about it. Whatever. But Nobel's like, dude.
Yeah, and don't forget the accomplishment of learning all those languages. Like that alone maybe deserves a prize.
Yeah.
Independent of the chemistry.
Maybe he developed the languages just counting the money from all those different places. Like he had that.
Right, he had to be good in math too.
Currencies and yeah.
Yeah, the Krugers and all that. The Kroners.
Wait, is it the Kruger Rand?
It's the Kruger Rand. That's right. Yeah, that's a currency.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Thank you for a fantastic episode.
Oh, totally my pleasure. That was episode 7. Are we teasing episode 8?
We are not teasing it.
Okay.
We're going to let this one be a complete surprise.
I respect that.
Thank you. But fantastic to be back into the second half of Killer Inventions, part of the Killer Means Awesome podcast. And again, if any of our listeners have thoughts or ideas around what the next sort of subject matter should be for Killer Means Awesome, write in, maybe get some golf balls, why not?
killermeansawesome@gmail.com. If you want the golf balls, just send me your home address.
Perfect. All right, well, let's play our outro music, and we will be back next week with episode 8.
Here we go.